So we are continuing to follow breaking news. The president's son, Hunter Biden, has reached a plea deal in a federal investigation. So let's bring in CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson joining us now. So Jessica, for some people, they're just going to be kind of waking up and hearing the news and not knowing the details, even though we've been covering it for the last hour. So, give us a breakdown of, what you make of this filing.
So I think the breakdown is what's included and what's not included. This is about tax evasion. It's about so-called addict in possession of a gun, meaning Hunter Biden is being charged with having a gun and lying on a form to say, I'm not currently using drugs, where federal prosecutors suspected, no, that is not correct, given his erratic behavior at the time. That's an interesting charge because it's actually been used for some of the people involved in January 6th, who the Department of Justice maybe didn't get on other charges. And we've seen some of the people there who have been, who have pled guilty to that charge. So it's being used a little bit more frequently than we saw in the past. But as I said a moment ago, this is about what's included, which is taxes and a gun charge, and what's not included, which is the idea that Hunter Biden should have registered as a foreign lobbyist, or that there was something illegal about his business dealings. I will say the other big what is not included is anything that relates to the current president. These are charges about Hunter Biden, about his conduct. These are not charges about the current president. And as we've talked about, the two big questions are, when we actually see the document and we see the memorandum of understanding between Hunter Biden and the Department of Justice, does it clearly state, this is it, this is the end of the road? We have looked at whether or not Hunter Biden should have registered as a foreign agent, a foreign lobbyist, and we're done. No charges will be brought. Or does it leave the door open for future charges? Of course, the other big question is, what does this mean outside the legal arena in the House? We know that there is a House committee investigating Hunter Biden and President Biden. I think the answer to that is easier, which is it probably means full steam ahead, regardless of what happened today in this plea agreement.
And so no jail time for Hunter Biden at all, as far as we understand.
That's right. If the judge accepts this deal, there is no jail time. There's probation and there is a diversion program for that gun charge. So there's probation for the 2 tax charges, 2 misdemeanor tax charges, and again, a diversion program. And I believe that Hunter Biden has to stay drug-free for 24 months in order for that charge dealing with possessing a gun and lying and saying, I am not currently using drugs, that in order for that to stick, for the diversion to be the proper punishment, he has to agree to stay drug-free.
And yeah, the question on the form is, are you currently using drugs? Which to me is kind of, it's easy to interpret it in many ways. I don't know if it's the best question, but that is the question. So how quickly could an arraignment come after today's news?
It could come this week. So arraignments can happen very quickly. It could be next week. As we've all had a quick education dealing with other cases, federal judges have enormous discretion over their calendar and they can set things quickly, or we could see it next week. Again, it looks like the documents are all in order, so I don't see a reason for this to go longer than a week.
All right, Jessica, thanks for sticking around with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to pivot over to CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane, because, of course, there is a whole political sort of side to this. And, in addition to the Justice Department investigation, the House has been investigating the business dealings of the Hunter family. What are you hearing on the Hill today?
Well, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee just announced his committee's investigation into the Biden family will continue. This changes and stops nothing for House Republican Oversight Committee members, but it's noticeable in the initial hours of this news how quickly Republicans are tying this news about Hunter Biden to the federal prosecution of Donald Trump. Senator Rick Scott, who Nicole Killian quoted earlier, says that it's a slap on the wrist for Hunter Biden, while Joe Biden continues to, quote, hunt down his top political opponent. Then there's the statement from Republican Congressman Lance Gooden of Texas, who says Hunter will see 0 days in jail, even though he committed many crimes. Trump faces 450 years, over a paperwork dispute. That's the statement today from Lance Gooden, Republican from Texas. So you can see Republicans synthesizing this arrangement, this agreement between Hunter Biden's attorneys and the Department of Justice and what Donald Trump is facing in Florida. And we had that news earlier today that the judge in Fort Pierce, Florida, Judge Eileen Cannon, a Trump appointee, has set an initial trial date in that federal criminal prosecution of the former president. The initial trial date is August 14th. That is quite soon. That is an ambitious time frame, not likely to stick. There will almost certainly be calls for delay, pushing that back months, potentially many months. But in the same morning, we get the news of Hunter Biden and we get a trial date for Donald Trump. Perhaps it's no surprise Republicans in Congress are tying these two together as part of a larger argument, Anne-Marie and Vlad, that they say shows a two-tier justice system, one that favors the Democrats.
And so those investigations, Scott, the American people are going to be wondering. There's a legal investigation that is happening with the U.S. attorney, and then there's this political investigation happening within the halls of Congress. What kind of teeth do those investigations have?
Well, it's always possible, Vlad, that a federal prosecution can throw some wrench in the gears of a congressional investigation. It's always possible that there are similar witnesses or the same witnesses for both investigations, some of whom maybe stopped talking to the congressional investigators because they're now talking to the feds. That's been the reality since this began. This congressional investigation, though, was a top priority of Republicans as they campaigned for office in 2022. And as soon as they took over the gavels, the chairmanships of these committees who have jurisdiction, including the House Oversight Committee, they've made it clear today they are full throttle ahead trying to expand this investigation beyond Hunter Biden. They have made allegations that are uncorroborated that Joe Biden has been the recipient of some largesse or some benefit from foreign influence peddlers. They still have to show their work on that allegation, and at this point they haven't, but they've made clear those investigations continue.
Well, Scott, this committee has released an interim report already. And I've been saying this, throughout the morning, that what they failed to do is find any evidence of wrongdoing. But can you kind of talk a little bit more about what the interim report has found so far and why they believe that there's more to investigate?
Yeah, a lot of this hinges on a phrase called suspicious activity reports, which are financial reports that are flagged by the greater financial system. That's a term that maybe seem loaded to some people, that sometimes very innocuous, benign things are the subject of suspicious activity reports, but it's certainly clear to us that Republicans have hung their hats on that hook for quite some time. They've also subpoenaed thousands of pages of bank records and alleged improprieties, some of which may be reflected by this plea agreement that Hunter Biden's about to enter into. But it's clear they're going bigger than this, that they have sights set beyond Hunter Biden, though they have also subpoenaed one of his former business partners, Devin Archer. All of this, though, is getting criticism from Democrats that Republicans are, to a degree, weaponizing their oversight abilities and capabilities to try to damage Joe Biden on the eve of his presidential re-election campaign. So you see it going both ways. This is just a Rorschach test of your politics. Which side is weaponizing the levers of power to try to malign a future candidate? It's clearly a case where both sides see the other as using weapons and each side viewing themselves as the victim.
Indeed, Scott. Scott MacFarlane, thank you so much.